The stars looked different through the viewport when you knew you might die. Among them, Ambassador David Reed pressed his palm against the cool glass, watching the distant lights of the consortium border stations flicker in the darkness. Behind him, the crew of the diplomatic vessel Olive Branch moved with quiet efficiency, preparing for what everyone hoped would be humanity's greatest achievement. 3 ships, 3 unarmed vessels, carrying everything Earth wanted to share with the galaxy: art from every continent, music that made people weep and laugh, scientific discoveries that could cure diseases and feed billions. And most importantly, the message that humanity was ready to join the cosmic community as friends, not conquerors. David turned from the viewport as Captain Anna Frost approached. Her face showed the same mixture of hope and fear that everyone felt. They had spent 2 years preparing for this moment, studying every scrap of information about the galactic consortium. The alien civilization controlled thousands of worlds, maintained peace through overwhelming force, and had never encountered a species quite like humanity. We're approaching the meeting coordinates, Anna said quietly. Their response still waiting. David checked his communication pad for the 100th time. They had been broadcasting messages for 6 hours in every language they had decoded, from consortium transmissions, mathematical proofs, chemical formulas, even something as simple as images showing Earth's beauty and diversity. Anything to prove they came in peace. Dr. James Lloyd rushed over, his eyes bright with excitement despite the tension. The xenobiologist had dedicated his life to this moment. Ambassador, I've analyzed their communication patterns. They're definitely receiving us. The delay suggests they're debating among themselves, debating whether to talk or shoot. Anna muttered. David didn't disagree. Earth's location made them valuable. The sector of space humanity called home was rich in rare minerals and intersected several major trade routes. For centuries, the consortium had avoided the area because of something they called the barrier, an energy field that disrupted faster than light travel. Humanity had only recently figured out how to navigate it safely. Now Earth wanted to share that knowledge freely. The communication console beeped. Every head turned. 3-dimensional image materialized. The center of the bridge, the alien figure was tall and angular with skin that shimmered like oil on water. High Chancellor Dreth of the Galactic Consortium, his translator rendered his words in clipped formal English. Vessel Olive Branch, your presence in consortium space has been noted. State your intentions. David stepped forward, keeping his hands visible and open. High Chancellor Dreth, I am Ambassador David Reed of Earth. We come representing all of humanity with an offer of friendship and cooperation. We wish to establish diplomatic relations and share knowledge that benefits both our peoples. Dreth's expression was unreadable. Earth, world in the protected sector. How did you breach the barrier? We developed technology that harmonizes with the energy field rather than fighting against it. We would be honored to share this technology as a gesture of goodwill. Silence stretched for long seconds. Then Dreth spoke again, his tone colder. The consortium does not negotiate with species who trespass in our territory. You will submit to immediate integration as a client species under consortium law. Your technology will be surrendered. Your leaders will be Brought to the Capitol for judgment. The bridge went silent. David felt his stomach drop. This wasn't negotiation. It was a demand for total surrender. High Chancellor, we don't seek to challenge consortium authority. We simply ask to be recognized as an independent civilization. We can offer much to each other through voluntary cooperation. You mistake your position, human. The consortium maintains order through proper hierarchy. Species who cannot defend their territory have no claim to independence. You have 48 hours to accept client status, refuse, and we will claim your territory by force. The transmission cut off before David could respond. Unaccursed quietly, James looked stricken around the bridge crew. Members exchanged worried glances. They had come prepared for many scenarios. But not this, not outright rejection of every peaceful overture. David straightened his shoulders, open eye. Channel to Earth priority 1. Within minutes, he was speaking directly to the United Nations Emergency Council. President Akifer's face filled the screen, surrounded by leaders from every nation. David explained the situation quickly, watching hope die in their eyes. They won't even negotiate, Premier Liu Chin asked, her voice tight. No, they see us as primitives who stumbled into territory we don't deserve. Either we submit completely or they take what they want by force. General Robert Hayes leaned forward. Ambassador, you need to return to Earth immediately. We can discuss options from there. David shook his head. We still have 48 hours. I want to try again. Maybe if they see we're serious about peace, if we show them more of who we are. The proximity alarm screamed. Anna's hands flew across her console, multiple contacts decloaking around us, 20 vessels, weapons charging. David's blood went cold. The consortium wasn't waiting 48 hours. They were here. Now, a new transmission forced itself onto every screen. War Coordinator Svin, second only to Dree in military authority. Vessels of Earth, you will power down all systems and prepare to be boarded. Your leaders will be executed. As an example, your crews will be enslaved. Your world will be occupied. This is the consequence of refusing the consortium's mercy. David looked at Anna, at James, at the crew who had trusted him to bring them home safely. 40 good people who wanted nothing more than to bridge the gap between species. 40 people about to die because humanity dared to ask for friendship. He opened the communication channel one last time to the consortium, to Earth, to anyone who would listen. Across the stars, we came in peace. We offered our hand in friendship. We brought gifts and knowledge and hope for a better future together. His voice grew harder. If this is how you answer peace, then know this: you'll regret this war. The first energy beam struck Olive Branch's hull before he finished speaking. Shields that were never meant for combat flared and died. The second beam punched through the bridge. Viewport. On Earth, billions watched the transmission end in static and fire. Humanity's face changed in that moment. Something ancient and terrible woke up behind their eyes. Something that had conquered a death world, survived ice, ages and plagues, and clawed its way to the stars against impossible odds. The consortium had no idea what they had just awakened. The footage played on every screen across Earth. 40 voices crying out whole breach alarms, screaming. Ambassador David Reed's last words cutting through the chaos before. Static consumed everything. 3. Diplomatic vessels erased from existence. In under 2 minutes, no survivors, no mercy. President James Akefer sat in the emergency session chamber deep beneath New York, surrounded by holographic projections of world leaders. Nobody spoke, they just watched the transmission replay for the 5th time, making sure they understood exactly what had happened. Premier Liu Chen broke the silence first. They didn't even wait for their deadline. They murdered our people while pretending to negotiate. Chancellor Sarah Brennan's hands trembled as she gripped the table. David was my friend. He believed in this. He thought we could reason with them. We all believed, Akefer said quietly. We were wrong. General Robert Hayes stood, his weathered face grim. Mr. President, members of the council, I need to show you something. Authorization code Hayes 77. Delta, the holographic displays shifted. Star charts appeared, marked with dots and symbols that most of the civilian leaders didn't recognize. Then images of massive shipyards orbiting Mars, construction facilities on Luna that shouldn't exist, weapon systems hidden in asteroid belts. What is this? Liu demanded. Hayes took a breath. 200 years ago, Earth achieved global peace. We dismantled our weapons, united our governments, and turned our eyes to the stars, but we remembered our history. We remembered what happens when the strong meet the weak unprepared. He gestured to the images. We built defenses just in case. We hoped we'd never need them. We prayed first contact would be peaceful. We were wrong to hope. A fear stared at the orbital shipyards. How many ships? 400 combat vessels fully operational. Another 500 in various stages of construction. We can have them ready in weeks. 400 against how many? Brennan asked. Unknown. Intelligence suggests the consortium maintains fleets numbering in the thousands across their territory. But Hayes pulled up new data. They've never fought anyone who could truly challenge them. Their tactics are centuries old, predictable. They rely on technological superiority and overwhelming numbers. Dr. Patricia Williams, Earth's chief historian, leaned forward. General, we can't match them ship for ship. Even with preparations, we're outnumbered. We don't need to match them, Hayes replied. We need to make them bleed. Make them question whether Earth is worth the cost. Humans are good at that. We spent millennia perfecting warfare against each other before we figured out peace. The room fell silent again. Finally, Akefer spoke. Show of hands, do we fight? Every hand rose without hesitation. Then we show the consortium what they've awakened. Akefer said. General Hayes, you have full authorization. Dr. 4. Williams, I want every historical record of human warfare compiled and transmitted to the consortium. Let them see what we're capable of. Let them understand who they're threatening. Within hours, Earth transformed. Factories shifted production to military equipment. Orbital construction accelerated around the clock. Scientists who had spent careers developing peaceful technologies turned their genius toward weapons. Veterans who hadn't touched a rifle in decades reported for duty, but it wasn't blood lust driving them. It was grief and determination. David Reed had been a good man, so had the 39 others who died. With him, they deserved better than to be forgotten. They deserved justice. Admiral Christine Porter took command of the defense fleet from Luna Base. She had fought in the Unity Wars back when humans still killed each other over borders and ideologies. She remembered what humanity could do when pushed. She just hoped the consortium didn't compile everything. She ordered her intelligence staff every battle humans ever fought, every strategy, every weapon. I want to know what worked when we were killing each other so we know what will work. Now the data was staggering. Thousands of years of warfare tactics developed across every terrain Earth could offer. Weapons that ranged from crude clubs to nuclear warheads. Humanity had spent more time fighting than any species should, and they had gotten very, very good at it. Dr. Williams prepared the transmission to the consortium. Historical records, casualty figures, battle analyses. She included everything: the world wars that killed millions, the nuclear exchanges that nearly ended civilization, biological weapons that humanity had thankfully never fully deployed, the Unity Wars that finally taught Earth the cost of division. The message concluded with simple text: this is what we did to ourselves. Imagine what we'll do to you. The consortium's response came within days. High Chancellor Dreth appeared on every broadcast channel. His message transmitted across the galaxy: the species called humanity has violated consortium space and murdered peaceful diplomatic vessels. The lie was breathtaking in its audacity. They threatened galactic stability with weapons of mass destruction and barbaric warfare tactics. The consortium has no choice but to defend civilization itself. A punishment fleet is being dispatched to pacify Earth and remove this threat on Earth. People watched the broadcast in stunned silence. Then someone started laughing. The sound spread. Humans across the world laughed at the sheer absurdity of the lie. They had recordings, they had proof. The whole galaxy would eventually know the truth, but first they had to survive. Admiral Porter reviewed the incoming intelligence. The consortium punishment fleet consisted of 200 vessels, heavily armed, experienced crews. They would arrive at Mars in 3 weeks. She smiled grimly. Mars was perfect. Commodore Stone, she opened a channel to the Mars Defense Coordinator. How are our preparations? Richard Stone appeared on screen, floating in zero gravity aboard Phobos Station. Phobos and Deimos are fully armed. Nobody knows these moons aren't natural formations anymore. The asteroid belt positions are ready. Fighter wings are drilled and waiting. Good, let them come. Thinking they're overwhelming primitives, will show them what a death world species looks like when it stops being polite. Across Earth, similar conversations happened. Every defense point checked and rechecked, every weapon tested, every soldier trained. But in the quiet moments, people mourned. Children asked why the aliens wouldn't be friends. Parents struggled to explain that sometimes kindness was met with cruelty. Teachers showed students the footage of Ambassador Reed's last transmission, making sure they understood what was being defended. Peace, the right to exist, the chance to reach for the stars without bowing to tyrants. On the final day before the consortium fleet arrived at Mars, President Akifer addressed Earth. Our ambassadors went in peace. They were murdered for it. Now the consortium comes to finish what they started. They think we're weak. They think we'll surrender. They don't understand that humans have survived everything this universe could throw at us: ice ages, plagues our own worst nature. We're still here, still standing still, reaching for something better. He paused, looking directly into the camera to the consortium fleet. Approaching Mars, turned back. You were wrong to kill our people. You're wrong to come here. Leave now and we'll settle this peacefully. But if you continue, if you fire one shot at our world or our people, then God help you, because we won't. The consortium fleet didn't respond. They just kept coming. Admiral Porter gave the order, all stations, battle ready. Remember what we're fighting for. Remember who we lost. Make them pay for every meter. Mars orbit went silent, waiting for the storm. Fleet Commander Vors reviewed the tactical display with satisfaction. 200 consortium warships in perfect formation, approaching Mars like a wall of inevitable death. The red planet hung in the void ahead, looking small and defenseless. Orbital scans showed minimal activity. A few civilian stations, some mining operations. Nothing that could challenge military might. These humans are fools, his tactical officer reported. They evacuated their colonies but left no defensive positions. They're cowering on their home world. Vors agreed. Intelligence reports suggested humanity possessed some military capability, but nothing compared to consortium power. This would be a quick demonstration. Crush Mars, move to Earth, accept their surrender. The entire campaign would take perhaps a month. He opened a general broadcast. Attention Mars installations, you have one opportunity to surrender. Power down all systems and prepare for consortium occupation. Resist and you will be destroyed. Silence answered him. Very well, all ships attack formation. Target anything that the tactical display exploded with warnings. Phobos, Mars's largest moon, came alive. Massive weapons batteries emerged from what intelligence had classified as simple mining operations. Rail guns the size of city blocks opened fire. The first salvo caught the consortium fleet completely unprepared. 15 ships vanished in the opening. Second, explosions blossomed across the void. Evasive action, Vari screamed. Return fire. Where did those weapons come from? Then Deimos activated. More weapons, more death. The humans had turned both moons into massive fortresses, while the consortium thought they were just mining rocks. Vors's second in command clutched his station as the flagship shook. Sir, those aren't standard weapons. They're firing solid projectiles at relativistic speeds. Our shields weren't designed for. Another ship died, then 3 more. Launch fighters establish a defensive perimeter. Vors tried to impose order on the chaos. His fleet outnumbered the human defenses. They could still win this. They had to win this. That's when the asteroid belt woke up. Hundreds of small craft emerged from hiding among the rocks. Human fighters, each barely larger than an escape pod. They moved with impossible precision, coordinated like a single organism. No communication delays, no hesitation. They targeted life support systems, engine clusters, sensor arrays. Every attack calculated for maximum damage with minimum exposure. Commodore Richard Stone watched from Phobos Command Center. The tactical hologram showed consortium ships dying, scattering, trying desperately to adapt to warfare they didn't understand. Target the carriers, he ordered calmly. Without fighter support, their capital ships are vulnerable. The rail guns spoke again. solid tungsten rods, accelerated to a fraction of light. Speed physics did the rest. When they hit consortium shields, they didn't explode, they punched through. Kinetic energy converted to heat and force. Ships broke apart. Lieutenant Amy Chen piloted her fighter through the chaos, her hands steady despite her racing heart. Her targeting computer designated a consortium cruiser. She armed a swarm of micro-missiles and released them. Dozens of tiny warheads scattered, each hunting a specific system. The cruiser's point defense destroyed most of them. But 7 got through. Life support failed. Environmental controls froze. The crew had maybe 5 minutes before. The cold of space killed them. Amy didn't celebrate. Her wingman had died. 10 minutes into the battle, good people were dying on both sides, but the consortium started this. They murdered ambassadors. They came here to conquer Earth. Peacekeeper flight form up on me. She transmitted, we've got carriers at Grid 77. Her squadron followed without question. They had drilled for this, practiced, until they could fly in their sleep. Now it paid off. Vors couldn't believe what he was seeing. Half his fleet was gone. Half against what should have been a minor defensive force. The humans fought with a viciousness that shocked him. They sacrificed ships willingly to get kills. They used their own vessels as weapons when ammunition ran low. One fighter pilot had actually rammed her damaged craft into a carrier's hangar bay, detonating the fuel and ammunition stored there. We need to retreat, his second officer said. Regroup, and we cannot show weakness. Vorney slammed his fist down. The entire galaxy is watching. If we retreat from primitives, the consortium's authority collapses. But he had no good options. His fleet was being massacred. Human tactics made no sense. They didn't fight to hold territory, they fought to kill. Every engagement was a lesson in applied violence. Marine Sergeant David Anquo led his boarding team through the corridors of a captured consortium destroyer. They had launched in assault pods, punched through the hull, and now moved room by room. The aliens fought hard, but humans had spent millennia perfecting close quarters combat. Left corridor clear, his corporal reported. Prisoners secured. David nodded. Treat them according to protocol. Medical attention for wounded. No abuse. He meant it. Humans could be brutal in combat, but they had rules. Lines they wouldn't cross, even against enemies who had crossed every line. First, the irony wasn't lost on him. Humans had finally learned to be civilized, and the galaxy punished them for it. After 6 hours of continuous combat, Vors faced reality. Of his 200 ships, only 47 remained combat effective. The humans were offering surrender terms, medical treatment, fair treatment under something they called war conventions. He had no choice. The alternative was complete annihilation. The consortium fleet powered down. Weapons, human ships surrounded them. Wearily, nobody trusted this to last. But for now, the killing stopped. Admiral Porter broadcast from Luna. Consortium forces, you are now prisoners of war. You will be treated with dignity and care. Your wounded will receive medical attention. You will be allowed to contact your government. This is who we are. We offered you peace. You refused. We gave you war. You lost. Now we offer mercy. Remember that. Across the galaxy, species who had lived under consortium rule for centuries watched the broadcasts in stunned silence. The invincible fleet had been destroyed by humans, by a species nobody had heard of. Until weeks ago, on Earth, people celebrated briefly, then they remembered. This was just the beginning. Consortium wouldn't accept defeat. They would come back with more ships, more anger, more determination. President Akefer addressed the planet. We want a battle, not the war. They'll return. We need to be ready. General Hayes was already working on preparations. The captured consortium vessels would be studied, their technology analyzed, their tactics dissected. Every scrap of information would be used to prepare for what came next, because everyone knew the truth. The consortium's pride wouldn't allow this insult to stand. They would gather their full strength. They would come for Earth with everything they had, and humanity would be waiting. News of the Mars battle spread across the galaxy like wildfire through dry grass, in markets, council chambers, and private homes spanning thousands of light years. Species watched footage of human fighters tearing through consortium vessels. They watched prisoners being treated with dignity. They watched fleet Commander Vor surrender to Admiral Porter with tears running down his face. President Callas of the Tauran Republic sat alone in her office, replaying the human ambassador's final transmission. Her people had surrendered to the consortium a century ago. After a brief, brutal war, they had accepted client status rather than extinction. She had spent her entire career telling herself it was the right choice. Now she wasn't so sure. Madame President, her aide, entered quietly. The street protests are growing. People are demanding we declare independence. Callas looked out her window at the crowds below, Tauran citizens waving hastily made flags, chanting slogans about freedom. A century of submission cracking in a single day. Contact Earth's diplomatic channels, she said. Tell them the Tauran Republic wishes to establish communication. Halfway across the galaxy, merchant Captain Felix Grant sat in a crowded bar, surrounded by traders from a dozen species. Everyone wanted to talk to the human. Everyone wanted to know if the rumors were true. Is it real? A Vaxian merchant asked. Did your people really destroy half a consortium fleet? Felix sipped his drink slowly. What you saw is what happened. We asked for peace. They gave us war. We returned it with interest. But how? Another trader pressed. The consortium has the best technology, the most ships. They have what works when everyone fights the same way. Felix interrupted. Humans learned to fight on a world that spent millennia trying to kill us. We developed tactics against predators, diseases, each other. The consortium learned to fight species who followed rules. We just did what came naturally. There are rumors. The vaccine leaned closer, that your world is a death world, that your gravity is crushing, that your diseases would kill most species in ours, that your planet is so violent that your people evolved to be nearly unkillable. Felix smiled slightly. Earth has weather that can level cities, animals that hunt in packs, plants that can poison you with a touch, diseases that wiped out millions before we learned medicine. And yes, our gravity is about 40% higher than galactic standard. We're not unkillable. We just don't quit easily. On the consortium capital world of Dream, Prime High Chancellor Dreth raged. His council chambers shook with his fury as he threw data pads and smashed displays. Explain to me how 200 warships were defeated by primitives. War Coordinator Svin stood rigid. Humans anticipated our tactics. They fortified positions we thought insignificant. They used weapons we didn't expect. They fought with a level of coordination that suggests AI assistance. Then crushed them with numbers. Dreth shouted, assemble the full armada, every ship, every species. We will make an example of Earth that the galaxy will remember for 1,000 years. High Chancellor, one of the civilian council members, spoke carefully. There are protests across our territory. Subject species are questioning our authority. If we commit our full strength against Earth and fail, we will not fail. Dreth's voice was ice. Send the order. 2,000 ships. We will glass their planet from orbit if necessary. But even as he spoke, cracks were forming in the consortium's foundation. On Earth, Director Lucas Raymond coordinated the intelligence network that most people didn't know existed. Human agents embedded in consortium space for years were now earning their keep. Report from Valdari Collective. An analyst said Ambassador Sarin wants to establish secret communication. The Valdari Lucas pulled up their files. They're consortium members. Why would they contact us? She says she watched Ambassador Reed's final transmission. Says her people were forced into the consortium through economic sanctions and military threats. She wants to help. Lucas thought carefully. This could be genuine, could be a trap, could be the opportunity they desperately needed. Arrange secure communication, but verify everything she tells us. Within hours, he was speaking with Sarin. Through encrypted channels, she appeared genuinely distressed. Your ambassadors came in peace, she said. We watched them die. Consortium claims you attacked first. But we've seen the unedited footage. We know the truth. Why contact us? Lucas asked bluntly. Why risk consortium retaliation? Because if you fall, there's no hope for the rest of us. The consortium maintains power through fear. You've shown they can be beaten, but you can't win alone. Let me help. Intelligence on fleet movements, strategic targets, political weaknesses. I can provide what you need. Lucas made the decision. What do you want in return when this is over? Remember that some of us tried to help when you're rebuilding the galaxy. Remember the Valdari stood with you. The intelligence she provided was invaluable. Consortium fleet composition, supply routes, communication protocols, political divisions between member species. Some supported the war, others were being coerced. A few were actively looking for ways to break free. Dr. Patricia Williams compiled all the information into actionable analysis. The consortium isn't monolithic. It's an empire held together by force and fear. If we can break that illusion of invincibility, the whole structure might collapse. Admiral Porter studied the strategic projections. 2,000 ships, the largest military force ever assembled against a single planet. Even with preparations, Earth was outnumbered 5-1. We need force multipliers, she said. Something that makes every human ship worth 10 of theirs. The science teams worked without rest. They analyzed captured consortium technology, looking for weaknesses. They studied battle recordings, searching for patterns. They pushed human engineering to its limits. Then Dr. James Lloyd miraculously recovered from escape pods. After the diplomatic convoys destruction made a discovery. The consortium standardizes everything, he explained to the military council. Same Shield generators across all ships, same. Power systems, same communication. Protocols, it makes logistics easier, but creates a vulnerability. Explain, Porter leaned forward, if we can disrupt the specific frequency there. Shields operate on, we could disable a huge portion of their fleet. Simultaneously, it would require massive power and precise calibration, but the generators on Luna could do it. General Hayes whistled, "You're talking about turning our moon into a weapon." "One-shot weapon," Lloyd corrected. "After we fire, they'll adapt, but for one critical moment, we could level the playing field." Porter looked at the projections. The cost would be enormous. The risk catastrophic. If it failed, Earth would be defenseless. "Do it," codename Project Resonance. Across Earth, final preparations accelerated, every ship completed and crewed, every defense platform activated, every soldier drilled. Civilians evacuated to underground bunkers designed to survive orbital bombardment. President Ophir broadcast one final message before the consortium fleet arrived. To every species watching across the galaxy, Earth offered peace. We were answered with murder, now we face annihilation. We will fight, we will likely die, but we will show the universe that freedom is worth any cost. That kindness isn't weakness, that peace must be defended with strength." He paused, looking directly at the camera. "And to the consortium, you had your chance. Ambassador Reed gave you every opportunity to choose friendship. You killed him for it. Now you send an armada to finish what you started. Come. Then come with your thousands of ships. Come with your threats of annihilation. But know this, when this is over, when the smoke clears and the fighting stops, the galaxy will remember that humanity stood alone against tyranny and never surrendered." The consortium armada entered human space 3 days later. 2,000 warships that blotted out the stars. They came expecting quick victory. They came ready to make an example of Earth. They had no idea that humans had turned their entire solar system into a weapon, or that species across the galaxy were watching, hopping, praying that the death world species could do the impossible one more time. High Chancellor Dreth stood on the bridge of his flagship Sovereign Will, watching Earth's solar system materialize on the tactical display. 2,000 warships under his direct command, the largest military force the consortium had ever assembled. Surely the humans could see the futility of resistance. "Now row our final terms," he ordered. "Unconditional surrender within 1 hour, or we begin planetary bombardment." The transmission echoed across every frequency. Then came Earth's response. Not a message, just coordinates pointing to empty space beyond the solar systems edge. Admiral Porter's voice followed. "You wanted to see our home world, Chancellor. First, you'll meet our friends." Dreth frowned. "What friends?" Intelligence showed no allied species. The humans stood alone. His answer came from the Kuiper Belt. Thousands of automated weapons platforms activated simultaneously. Not ships, just weapons, missiles, rail guns, energy beams. Each platform was small, cheap, expendable. Each carried just enough firepower to damage one ship before being destroyed. The Sentinels, humans called them, a defensive swarm designed for one purpose: make invaders bleed before they even saw Earth. The platforms attacked in waves coordinated by quantum communication networks. They didn't try to win, they just tried to Heard and they succeeded, ships took damage, shields flickered, crews died. The consortium destroyed hundreds of sentinels, but there were always more. Dreth watched his fleet casualty reports. Climb, press forward, these are automated defenses, ignore them and focus on reaching Earth, but ignoring the sentinels meant taking hits, and every hit mattered. By the time the consortium fleet reached Neptune, they had lost 90 ships to automated defenses. Then Commodore Helen Jacobs sprung her trap. 200 human warships emerged from Neptune's magnetic field, using the giant planet's radiation as cover. They struck fast and hard, targeting damaged consortium vessels. The already weakened ships couldn't handle concentrated fire. Ambush, Dreth's tactical officer screamed, they're using the planet's gravity well to slingshot around us. Jacobs had studied Neptune for years. She knew every quirk of its orbit, every fluctuation in its storms. The consortium ships struggled with interference. Human vessels built to operate in extreme conditions fought at full efficiency. All ships rolling thunder formation. Jacobs ordered, make them chase us through the radiation belts. For 6 hours the battle raged around Neptune. Human ships darted in and out of the planet's storms, using nature itself as a weapon. Consortium vessels that followed into the worst radiation zones lost shields and sensors, but Dreth had numbers for every human ship destroyed. He had 10 more. Slowly, inevitably, the human defense crumbled. Jacobs watched her fleet die around her. 80 ships left, 60, 40. They had hurt the consortium badly, but not enough. Never enough. All ships fall back to Jupiter. She transmitted, then privately to her bridge crew, accept us. Her first officer understood immediately. Helen. No, my crew volunteers only, she said firmly. Everyone else evacuation pods. Now half the bridge crew stayed. They knew what she planned. They accepted it. As the surviving human fleet retreated, determination stayed behind. Jacobs positioned her ship directly in the path of the consortium command cluster. Then her engineers began overloading the reactor. Chancellor Dreth, she broadcast, you came for peace and turned it into war. This is what war looks like when you fight humans. We don't quit, we don't surrender, and we make you pay for every meter. The reactor detonated. The explosion consumed determination and 23 consortium ships that had clustered too close, including 2 carriers. Earth mourned Commodore Jacobs. They also celebrated her sacrifice because she had bought time for Jupiter's defenses to prepare. General Robert Hayes commanded from Ganymede, Jupiter's largest moon. He had transformed the Jovian system into a fortress over 5 years. Every moon held weapons, every asteroid concealed fighters. The ice fields of Europa hid submarine-style ships that could strike and disappear into frozen waters. The consortium fleet, now reduced to 1,600 ships, approached cautiously. They had learned to fear human traps. Let them come. Careful, Hayes muttered. Careful means slow. Slow means we can pick them apart. The battle for Jupiter lasted 6 days. Longer than any engagement in consortium history. Human forces used every trick, every innovation, every desperate gambit they could imagine. They learned that consortium shield frequencies could be exploited. They shared that information across the fleet instantly. Suddenly, human weapons became 30% more effective. They discovered that consortium Commanders followed predictable patterns. Admiral Porter's AI assisted. Tactical network predicted enemy movements with frightening accuracy. They captured damaged enemy vessels and turned their weapons against former allies. Consortium crews, seeing their own ships fighting them, began to crack psychologically, but mostly humans just refused to stop. When ammunition ran low, they rammed. When ships were crippled, they positioned themselves as obstacles. When defeat seemed certain, they found new ways to hurt the enemy. On Earth, people watched the Jupiter battle with held breath. Every broadcast showed the same message: hold the line, keep them away from Earth. By time for Project Resonance to be ready. In underground bunkers, teacher Maria Santos kept her students calm by telling stories of human perseverance, how their ancestors survived ice ages, how they rebuilt after disasters, how they always found a way forward. Why do the aliens hate us? A child asked. Maria chose her words carefully. They don't hate us. They're afraid we're different. We came from a harsh world and it made us strong. They don't know what to do with that strength except try to destroy it. After 6 days of continuous combat, General Hayes made the call everyone dreaded. All forces fall back to Mars. We can't hold Jupiter. The consortium had won, but at terrible cost. Of 1,600 ships that entered the Jovian system, only 1,200 emerged, damaged, exhausted, demoralized. Dreth stared at the casualty reports with growing horror. 3 orders of his original fleet gone against a species that numbered ships in hundreds, not thousands. Sir, War Coordinator Esvin spoke quietly. We should negotiate the cost. No, Dreth slammed his fist down. We've come too far, lost too much. Earth will fall. I will personally watch their world burn. The consortium fleet limped toward Mars. Then Earth. They could see Luna now. Humanity's moon. They could see orbital defenses activating. And Admiral Porter standing on Luna base, watching the enemy approach, allowed herself a grim smile. Project Resonance is ready, Dr. Lloyd reported. 94% chance of success. And if we fail, Porter asked, then Earth dies. Today, Porter looked at the approaching armada, at the planet behind her that held everything worth protecting, at the countdown timer showing hours until the enemy entered optimal range. All ships prepare for final defensive positions. This is where we make our stand. Space around Earth erupted light and fury as 1,200 consortium warships engaged 400 human vessels and planetary defenses. Every weapon fired, every shield strained. Ships died on both sides, burning trails across the void that had once seemed so peaceful. Admiral Christine Porter stood in Luna Base Command Center, watching the tactical display with calm eyes. Around her, officers called out status reports. Hull breaches, shield failures, casualties mounting. The consortium was pressing hard, trying to overwhelm Earth's defenses through sheer numbers. Ma'am, Sector 7 is collapsing, her tactical officer reported. We've lost 30 ships in the last hour. Porter checked the countdown. Hour until Project Resonance could fire. 2 hours to hold against an enemy that outnumbered them 3-1. Rotate fresh ships into Sector 7. Pull back the damaged ones. We just need to hold. High Chancellor Dreth watched Earth grow larger on his displays. The blue planet looked fragile, defenseless, yet it had cost him hundreds of ships, thousands of lives, the price of human stubbornness, was written in the wreckage floating through space, target their orbital platforms, he ordered. Once those fall, the planet is ours. His weapons coordinators obeyed. Massive energy beams lanced toward Earth's defensive satellites. Some died, others returned. Fire with equal fury, the battle became a grinding match of attrition. Who would break first? Lieutenant Amy Chin pulled her fighter through impossible maneuvers, dodging fire from 3 consortium vessels. Her wingman was gone. Most of her squadron was gone, but she kept fighting because stopping meant dying, and dying meant Earth fell. She spotted an opening, a consortium carrier with damaged shields, her last missiles locked on. For Ambassador Reed, she whispered and fired. The missiles found their mark. Secondary explosions rippled through the carrier. It wouldn't be killing any more humans today. Marine Sergeant David Anquo led his team through another boarding action. They had captured 2 consortium destroyers by cutting through airlocks and fighting deck by deck. It was brutal close quarters combat where human strength and determination made the difference. Secure the bridge, he ordered, then turn their weapons on their own fleet. His Marines moved with practiced efficiency. They had done this before. They would do it again if they survived. On Earth, billions watched from underground bunkers. Parents held children, teachers maintained calm. Everyone understood what was happening. Above their heads, humanity's final stand against overwhelming odds. President James Offer sat in the command bunker beneath New York, surrounded by world leaders. They had made all the decisions they could. Now they could only watch and wait. Mr. President, an aide reported casualty reports coming in. We've lost 140 ships. Consortium has lost 300. The ratio was good, but ultimately meaningless if they ran out of ships. First, Porter checked the countdown. Again, 1 hour. She opened a channel to Dr. James Lloyd. Status on resonance. Charging as planned. Lloyd's voice was tight with stress. But Admiral, if this doesn't work, then we did our best. That's all anyone can ask. She turned to her fleet. All ships, this is Porter. In 1 hour we activate our last trick. Until then we hold. We've bled them. We've hurt them. Now we finish it. Make every shot count. Make every second matter. Show them why you don't threat Earth. The human fleet responded with renewed determination. Ships that had been falling back steadied. Weapons that had been conserving ammunition opened up. If this was the end, they would go down fighting. Dreth felt victory approaching. The human fleet was weakening, their defenses cracking. Soon he would land troops on Earth and personally oversee the occupation. The galaxy would learn what happened to species who defied the consortium. Sir, the humans are pulling back, his tactical officer reported, falling to minimal safe distance from their moon. They're retreating. Dreth smiled. Press the attack. Don't let them regroup. Consortium fleet surged forward, sensing weakness. They moved into tight formation for maximum firepower. Exactly what Porter had been hopping for. Resonance is ready, Lloyd transmitted. On your mark. Porter watched the enemy fleet cluster together, chasing her ships. Watch them move into optimal range. Watch the countdown hit 0. Snorts fire. Luna's surface split open. Massive generators that had been built in secret over decades activated simultaneously. They had one job: generate an electromagnetic pulse tuned precisely to the consortium standardized shield frequency. The wave propagated outward at light speed, invisible, unstoppable, perfect. 800 consortium ships lost shields. Instantly, their standardization meant to simplify, logistics had become their doom. Only ships with modified or damaged systems retain protection. All ships attack now. Porter's voice rang across every channel, hit them while they're vulnerable. The human fleet fell on the defenseless consortium. Vessels like wolves, rail guns fired, missiles launched, energy weapons burned ships that had been invulnerable minutes ago died by the dozens. Dreth watched in horror as his fleet disintegrated. Restore shields, retreat, defensive formation. But human ships were already among them. Too close for safe retreat, too aggressive to shake off, and every second more consortium vessels died. War Coordinator Esvin grabbed Dreth's arm. We must surrender. We've lost. Accept it. Never. Dree shook him off. We are the consortium. We do not yield to primitives. Marine Sergeant Ayanquo and his team breached Sovereign Will's hull. They fought through corridors filled with desperate consortium soldiers, fought toward the bridge, toward Dreth himself. The Chancellor stood defiant when they finally reached him. I will not surrender. Ayanquo leveled his weapon. Then you'll die. Your choice. For a long moment they stood frozen. Then Dreth's shoulders slumped. What are your terms? Medical treatment, fair trial, that's all we offer, that's all we promised. Across the battlefield, consortium ships surrendered by the dozens. Some tried to flee. Human forces accepted surrenders and destroyed those who fought on. When the smoke cleared, only 200 consortium vessels had escaped. The rest were captured or destroyed. The greatest fleet ever assembled had been shattered by a species the galaxy barely knew. Porter broadcast across every channel. Cease fire, accept all surrenders. Render aid to damaged vessels. This is over. Earth had survived. Bloodied, damaged, but standing. 5 years later, Ambassador Sarin of the Valdari stood in the new galactic council chambers. Representatives from hundreds of species gathered to ratify the peace accord. The consortium was dissolved, its member species freed. Earth held a seat of honor, not because they had won a war, but because they had tried to avoid it, because even in victory they had shown mercy. President Akefor addressed the gathered species. We came in peace. We were answered with violence. We fought because we had to. Now we offer again what we offered before: friendship, cooperation, peace. Not because we're weak, but because it's right. The galaxy accepted, because